Hello, selectors, and welcome back to the Life Burst Podcast. I know it's been only a couple days since the last time we chatted.
Has it?
Yeah, it's a couple days, I'm sure. It's not been like a month and a half.
Yeah, definitely not that. Welcome back to Life First Podcast. I'm Tiffany, that's Andrew.
Hi!
We are the Wixoss podcast that talks about only the Wixoss things and all the Wixoss things.
We got so much to talk about, which is crazy because it's only been a couple of days. The Nanbu just came out, and now there's this Blue Archive set.
You're shouting.
I always shout. I'm so excited about Blue Archive. Hi, everybody. So I'm going to set the clock real quick. Just a little timer, just to say...
so we stay on topic.
So we stay on topic here, because I don't want this to be a super, super long podcast. We're going to talk about Blue Archive. We're going to talk about the pre-release we just did.
Mm-hmm.
And we're also going to talk about just Blue Archive in general and its impact in standard tournament play.
As it pertains to Wixoss, not as it exists outside of Wixoss.
This
is just the set.
That is correct. Although I will take a note here and say if you are going to the GP in Dallas, Texas, I'll be there. And we'll be giving away our tokens for this time around, which is the Bonds with tokens here. Tiffany, you made these, right?
I did, yeah. So if you may recognize the art of our Larig Sonas, that I then changed to be a little bit more like crush core. like, okay. So if you've ever had a crush on someone and you've scrapbooked about it, it might look something like this. Please tell me I'm not alone. Oh my
right,
God.
Or if you were like in the 90s and you got like a Valentine's Day, like one of those like 50 packs.
Yeah, like with the little like Valentine's Day like notes that you give out to all your classmates, or if you just like Powerpuff Girls, it is lightly inspired by Powerpuff Girls.
Right. So the cute thing you can do here is with this, you can take your card, put a line behind it, right? And you can either do the bonds with here, like that, and you'd be like, oh yeah, I'm bonded with this card. Or if you want to just like do a heart, you can do that instead. And,
yeah.
Slide it down to however you please with it.
I hope you guys like these. And yeah, like these are, and maybe, I know that some of you guys are collectors of our tokens out there, so I hope you'll enjoy these.
Yeah, and as always, like anyone who buys off of like TCG Player, I also attach.
I'll slip these in.
I slip these tokens in as a thank you gift
Cheeky
to...
little freebie.
We made these before the English translation of what the Bonds With is.
We sure did.
And I think I'm going to keep saying Bonds With my entire life, but... Tiffany, we were at this pre-release and we came up with many new ways that we could.
I did.
We could have a platonic relationship with students.
A healthy platonic relationship with our students.
Yeah.
So I said things like I'm opening up a mentorship with. I'm supervising the after school club.
Yeah, I liked chaperoning
the
field trip. That's my personal one.
We're extending our office hours for.
Yeah.
I am assisting with college applications. That sort of thing.
So that's what we think happens with Blue Archive. We've never played the game, so as far as or watched the anime, so as far as we're concerned, that's as much as we know.
Both taking a good
long sip of tea. Hey, we played this pre-release. You kicked my butt at the finals. I lost. I got second.
Did. Yeah, you were very sure you were going to have that win, and I was like,
no, I wasn't. You navigated it really well. I got double refreshed, which is crazy since I was running Swimsuit Party.
It's not that crazy. It's not that crazy when you consider that with pre-release, you're working with like a 30-card deck.
Yeah.
And if you run up against any sort of mill, or if you're running a deck that makes you draw a lot, you're just going to mill out. You will mill out at least once, twice, if that's something that your opponent is trying to do to you.
You did a random discard at the very start. You opened Azusa. I opened Niru. You did a random discard at the start, and actually kind of screwed my like level 1, level 2 hand. So I had to Swimsuit Party early. Because I had to Swimsuit Party earlier than I wanted to, I could have won the game if I had a single card in my deck, right? Like a single card in my deck, because you had to run the green. You had to run the green Elrig. So to heal a Life Cloth, I had to take a card off the top of my deck and put it into my Life Cloth. Except it was my last card. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, I couldn't. I could, right? Like that way, I could at least draw two on my next turn. But
Okay, but to be fair, you did the same thing to me
I
in
know,
that game.
I know.
So I had, what was it? You were gonna mill me five.
Mm-hmm.
And I had six cards in my deck, and it was defense step to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to go ahead and put that card in my life cloth, knowing that it was just going to end up getting refreshed anyways. But I did that because I would rather draw two cards on my next turn
Yeah.
and preserve my life cloth than only draw one card and not preserve my life
It
cloth.
was a it
It
was a
seemed like a better play.
pretty intense game for sure.
It
It came
was
down to literal bursts,
very
which did
scuffed.
not work for me. Yeah, let's talk about the scuffness. So if you guys
Oh my
haven't,
god, worst pulls ever.
yeah, if you haven't played this pre-release yet, buckle in. It's scuffed, and like it's normally pretty scuffed,
This
right?
is more scuffed than normal,
Yeah,
I would say.
I would say our Atlanta group is like pretty adamant about like, yeah, we know that this is scuffed and we get that. I
Let's
heard
just have a good
someone
time.
one of our friends from Florida suggested that we add an extra pack to balance it out, which probably makes sense because what ends up happening is there's an art card, so that's already six less cards than you normally would get.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is I think there's also it makes that extra slot that could be a token more annoying when it actually is a token.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing is because they deleted a color, right? That is one less level 3 in the card pool, and then that has been put as level 2s and level 1s, which I think is good for standard tournament play because level 1s and level 2s are really important in standard tournament play. But and your SRs are like the level 3s you play anyways. But it makes the pool way worse where like you could have
Awful.
theoretically 0 level 3s in your deck, which I think Jimmy had.
Yeah.
Like
Like, I
one
think he
level
had one
3.
level three. I had three.
Yeah, I
I
got
had
lucky.
three level threes in a deck of 30. And to be clear, like, you have, when you open up packs, you do have a small sideboard.
Yeah.
None of, I only had two extra
I think
cards
I
that were
had
Signies, and neither one of those were level threes.
yeah, I
That
think
is how, like, I opened three level threes in the six packs that I got.
yeah, you put them all in.
And I put them all in because
Yeah.
I did not have a choice.
Yeah, I think I only had 2 extra cards to choose from as well.
I don't think I've opened that many level ones across six packs ever
Yeah.
for this game. It was so annoyingly saturated
Yeah.
with level
Yeah,
ones.
I
It was
agree with
bad.
that. And it was heightened by the fact that level 3s were actually really powerful, I think, in this
They
pre-release
were.
because not exactly the level 3s themselves were necessarily powerful, which I think they were. I think it was that it was because Blue Archive really struggles to take care of big Signy.
Yes. Yeah, if you put down any Signy during the pre-release that is 10,000 or more,
Yeah,
it's gonna stay
it
on the
usually
field.
sticks around.
It's gonna stay on the field.
Depending on the center, which we'll talk about that in a second. You have no control over it, so I don't think there's anything bemoaning if you open up quote unquote a bad center. I think that just is the
Yeah,
lifestyle.
that's just kind of how like the pre-releases go when you're working with sealed is it's sort of like you're gonna get what you're gonna get.
Yeah.
But like moving forward, like these are things that you might want to take into consideration.
Yeah, so it was basically like all of the Blue Archive stuff really was able to negative 5,000, was able to Lancer with 5K or 8K sometimes. Outside of that, you were really limited to like negative 3,000, right? And occasionally you could have something that does negative 10,000 in black. I think there's one Signy that does that. It's level 2. It
I think so.
um
That was my mistake, but
I think it's negative 10, but it could be minus 8. Either way, it's not super great. And the assists, there now the I think if you were looking at the assists, there's a blue line, there's a green line, and there's a black line.
Black.
Perfect team, and then I can't remember what the other ones are called. Um, The
Perfect Team Foreclosure,
Foreclosure, yeah, which was one,
and
and then
then whatever the blue one
C and C
was.
or something like that.
I don't
Um,
remember.
so the green line was basically mandatory. Not that it should have been, it just kind of was because the piece that you got was Swimsuit Party.
Mm-hmm.
And it is worth it to run Swimsuit Party. It is a mega draw. Like you draw 5 cards, right? And also it lets you shuffle your deck. So if you're doing it correctly, you should probably try to shuffle back all of your life bursts, right? Like if
To
you're
prevent like a and to prevent a deck out.
well, yeah, to prevent a deck out, but you also shuffle back all your life bursts specifically because the green line for assist allows you to shuffle your deck and then put the top card of your deck into
Mm-hmm.
your life cloth. So it gives you a higher chance of burst.
Especially in a 30 card deck with no maximum
Yeah.
bursts. So for sealed, yeah, I would say that that's a fine piece to run, and luckily it's the one that everybody gets. I personally opened the Gehenna Academy Disciplinary Committee,
Yeah.
and quite frankly, I don't think that one was that bad.
No, I think that one's superior.
Yeah, I think it was great. Its only use condition is that you have at least one black Larig, which I was going to use the black assist anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So my team was black, green, white center. And what that one says is, I'll go ahead and read it for you selectors. It's a dream team piece with at least one or more black Larigs on your field. And it is the relay piece to the Kronos News Club, which you will also get in your sealed pack, or General Student Council.
Right.
And it says target one Signy on your opponent's field. It gets minus 8,000 power until end of turn, which worked perfectly fine considering a majority of the Signy for sealed is under 10k.
Yeah.
If it's above 10k, like, then you gotta start like combining it with stuff. But it's enough to knock something out. Target up to 3 Signy in your trash without a guard and add them to your hand.
Yeah, you can get your bombs back.
Yeah, so you can get your bombs back, or you can get the only 3 level 3s you had in your whole deck.
But that's really you bring up a good point. Like that being able to do that was really powerful for you because it means that at all points, like you had 3 level 3s, I had 3 level 3s, right?
Mm-hmm.
I used 2 of my 3 because one of them ended up being milled, but you used 2 of your 3, one ended up being milled, but then you got the 3 back, so it means that you had 5, right?
Yes.
And that it just outgunned me, period.
Yes. And then the last part is put the top 8 cards of your opponent's deck into the trash. Then you can basically exceed 4 and
bond with a student
and open a mentorship with a student. Which actually, the first game that I used this, I did form a bond. The second game, we had screwed each other enough that we could not grow to our level 3.
Yeah,
we got stuck at level 2 for a turn. But it seemed like a good time to play the piece, so I ended up just whiffing on the last part, which I don't actually think hurt me that much. No. To be honest,
bonds matter so much less in this. Like there was I basically bonded with my level 3s, right? Mm-hmm. And then if I got them, I was like, cool, I can Lancer through for a change, right? Like that was the green one that could get Lancer. So yeah, I don't think bonds matter so much in Seal as much as they do in tournament play. Standard, tournament play, they'll be fine.
Yeah.
The other piece I wanted to talk about real quick was General Student Council. This is a piece that when we talk about tournament play in a second, this is the worst one. This is really, it's just not good. It is actively bad. Your deck is worse for it.
I'll read it out for the selectors.
No, I've got it up on screen, so it's fine.
Okay.
Because we've got to get moving in a second here.
Okay, sure.
But basically, you get to look at the top 3, pull a blue archive Signy from. Put that into your hand, and then you have to bond with that specific Signy that you pull out, right? So this one doesn't allow you to have choice, unlike the other ones. But this one was actually fine in sealed. In sealed, this one was good because it added a card to your hand, and the bonds mattered a lot less. Mm-hmm. So and searching for your level 3s, I think were actually kind of important. So
I think so.
I think this is sealed was the only time I'd ever run this specific piece, and then I will never use this piece ever again in my life.
Did anybody even open one?
I did, yeah, and I used
You
it.
did?
It
Oh.
was good. It was
Alright.
good. It was actively good. It will never be good again. But that's what sealed is
It
for.
is a corner case scenario.
Yeah, so we got like a minute. I think it's thing we should talk about is the centers real quick. There's four of them.
Sure.
You've got
Azusa,
Azusa, you've got
Nero,
Niru, you've got Shiriko, and then you've got
Hina.
Hina. And I think that the ranking of that one is going to be Azusa is the best. Just because Azusa allows you to always open a lane without fail, period, right?
As
Like,
long as you can pay for it.
yeah, it's sealed. You've got enter. Like, you've got enter for days. Um, with
RIP if you didn't open up enough white.
yeah, that is a problem, but yeah, I think you can work with it.
You can.
Um,
It wasn't too difficult to get it to pop off when I wanted it to.
no, Niru I think is probably slightly below um Azusa. You do need to trigger the discard, but there's enough in Signy in blue that do discard that you'll be fine. And then after that, just slightly below that is probably Shiriko, because Shiriko needs you to enter an extra enter in order to give things Lancer, but Lancer is worse in sealed right now because you don't always have a 12k, because the level threes are lower. So
Because the likelihood of you even opening one
yeah,
is just
so Nero's asking you to discard some cards, which is already in color. Shiriko's asking you to have bigger Signy and also enter an extra enter, which is a little bit more difficult to do in sealed specifically. Following that is Hina, and I gotta be honest with you, I'm pretty sure Hina is just the worst one. I think if you open Hina, you
we
should.
apologize to anybody that is a fan of Hina.
But for sealed specifically, not great, not good.
Mm-hmm.
Because your bombs, there's just less bombs. Period. Because of the way
Mm-hmm.
that this pack distribution is. So you're recurring not bombs. You're recurring average
Yeah,
cards.
you're probably
And
recurring a lot of level ones.
and the other three can open lanes, right? And we just talked about the biggest problem with this is this set for sealed is that it struggles to open up anything higher than 8k, right?
Mm-hmm.
And 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 it's actually not that hard to get one of your Signy above 8k in this set.
So are we gonna talk about Shiroko then, if Hina is the worst? I mean, where does Shiroko land on this list?
Shiriko's probably just is second to worst, but also probably third to best. I don't know. I think there's a big gap between Shiroko and Hina. I think it's just
Damn,
okay.
green's been better
Azusa's
than black?
asking well, Azusa's asking nothing from you to open up a lane. It's just asking run white. Cool.
Just pay for it.
Um,
Yeah.
Nero is asking run blue, but also discard some cards, which is not super difficult to do in color. Green is asking you to, Shiriko is asking you to run big Signies, run green, and also run enter charging, which is a little bit more just in general. And then Hina just doesn't really give you anything. It's negative
Yeah.
3,000 is fine, but it's so easy to avoid putting out 3,000.
Yeah, I don't think I would have minded playing Shiroko if I had opened her. I did end up opening Azusa, which worked fine for me because I'm very used to White's shenanigans. But that said, based off of what I opened, I don't think that Shiroko would have been a
Yeah.
bad option for me either. There's a lot of support specifically for what that card is trying to do.
And to wrap up this conversation, I think the assists that you should be running is you should be running the blue line assist, which allows you to put something on the bottom. Yeah, I agree. I think you should be running that, and I think you should be running the black one.
For sealed?
Yes, for sealed, because
I respectfully disagree.
it opens up a lane. It opens up any power of Signy, and we just talked
Black
about.
does.
Yeah, but so does the blue one. The blue one allows you to bottom deck.
You weren't running the blue assist?
I wasn't
that
because
day.
I had to. I didn't. Unlike you, I didn't open up a piece. I didn't open up a piece, so I had to run the green one because the green piece says you have to run a green assist in its text. Whereas this blue piece or the blue blue assist,
Assists.
yeah, is 3 enter, put something on the bottom of the opponent's deck. So you can put away at level 3. You can get rid of it. So if you open up a good piece, you should probably run blue. You should probably run the black assists. Since if you don't open up a piece and you're forced into running the green piece, then I guess you'll have to run black and green. That's probably the way to go.
Why do I feel like that's not the one I opened. Oh, that isn't the one I opened. Oh, yeah. Mm. Yeah, based off of the cards that we got for sealed for the blue assist line, I just decided that that was not going to be the move for me.
Yeah.
Because black could open a lane twice. Um, the second version, the second grow for the black assist line
Yeah.
is like it's like okay, but at least the first line it'll give -8,
My
which
argument isn't black. My argument is that you should be not running the green assist
I
instead.
just
I know you disagree.
well, okay. So the reason why I disagree on that one specifically is because I was running a white center
Yeah.
who asked that I had a lot of costs
Yep. I
associated with
see.
her. So I knew that I was going to have some sort of enter support. Basically, I was just looking at it like I would run a Tama deck, and Tama needs enter support.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So that's why I chose that. And then with the ability to basically regrow a life cloth, I was like, yeah, sure, that sounds fine
Yeah.
because that's just one more damage that you're preventing.
Yeah, and
So
one more enter.
yeah,
We do really need to move on from
all right,
pre-release now,
let's do
though.
it.
If we're gonna get through all
What do you want
these
to talk
cards.
about?
Okay, so we should start with just the top and run through down a bit, but we're not going to go over. I know a lot of people want us to go over like basically every individual card. We can't do that.
That's not
So
possible.
so the biggest thing that we'll talk about is just sort of like Blue Archive as a whole and what it does to the meta, and then we'll talk about individual cards and highlight a couple of them. Not everyone, just like a handful.
With
Of
that
impact
said,
cards.
let us know your favorite cards in the comment section down below. You know, we love reading all of your comments. You guys are usually really smart and have a finger on the pulse in terms of each individual set, and we would love to know what you think.
So Blue Archive is one of these parasitic mechanic sets, which is that it plays well with itself and basically nothing else, right?
Which we've talked about these types
Yeah,
of sets
and
before.
Dissona is also like that. We are entering a phase of Wixoss where they are kind of just really doing parasitic mechanics over and over and over again, which is not bad. I know the word parasite scares everyone, right? I'm just calling it what it is, right? If you're playing a Blue Archive deck, you can buy this set, invest in a Blue Archive deck, and you've got a deck for about a year, right? Like it's gonna hold up in the meta, it's gonna do its thing, and it's gonna exist as a archetype, right? Same way that anyone who bought into the Dissona stuff or the virtual stuff is doing that as well, right? Like virtual's still doing the virtual thing several like half a year later, year
Virtual's been a
later,
virtual.
right? So this is the same deal, which is the good news about this, and I think Wecross is correct to do this as not one of the big three, types of card games, is that this allows people to invest in a specific deck type and it will remain relevant for months, if not a year or two, right? Whereas if you're constantly having to buy the new set in order to upgrade whatever deck you've got right now, it is tough, right? Yu-Gi-Oh is kind of the same way too. Yu-Gi-Oh has a lot of parasitic mechanics that deal with like dark magician or like the white dragon, like the blue eyes white dragon type. It's like that. So if you're gonna play a Blue Archive deck, you can play a Blue Archive deck. I think all of them are actually pretty good, right? Let's just ignore the centers for a second and talk about what Blue Archive offers main deck wise, because all of the then you can customize it a bit with the centers.
With your rigs.
But the basically what Blue Archive gives is a level of defense that I don't think Wecross has seen in a long while, right? Like, they're not all Exia, but some of them are pretty close. All of your level 1s and level 2s across every single of the 4 colors given in this set, RIP red, allows for shadow level 1s or getting back guards or 7 to 8Ks. Like, so all of them are tanky. They can all take hits, right? And right now, the most relevant things that kill stuff in the meta is like Firecracker, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which happens to vanish 5k or lower. We end up in this weird situation where we're Nova all over again, where like Nova ran a crap ton of like level 1 8Ks. It was just like, I don't really care that you have Lancelot. This is the same deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so you end up with Blue Archive being pretty tanky, and this is all comes to a head also with, I think, specifically probably the single shout out card in the set, which is Yuka. Yuka is the blue level 3. Um,
Okay.
I'm going to read this one out verbatim.
Okay.
It's a level 3, 12k power that just has a constant ability of during your opponent's turn, when a blue archive would leave your field by opponent's effect, you may perform discard 2 cards from your hand. If you do, this Signy loses its ability till end of turn. Um, Basically, this is like H2O on crack.
Oh my god.
It is. I mean, H2O basically was like, you can't make me leave the field, and really your dream setup was like an H2O, H2O, something else, right? And
Mm-hmm.
the opponent could pop a hole in one of those things, but the other 2 H2Os would survive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yuka is better than that. Yuka is like, I'll protect every single blue archive on the field.
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't do the ability where I discard things because I'm like, yeah, it's fine, you can kill that level 1. I would rather my Yuka stay on the field, right? The flip end is you don't have to do the way that the text is written. It's not a once per turn. The effect can only happen once, but if you choose to ignore it because it's a May ability, it
Mm-hmm.
means the next time they try to get rid of like your Yuka or something, you'd be like, nope, I need to protect that one, and then you can discard the 2. So it gives you even more options about what you're
It,
protecting.
it does not have a, well, it doesn't say that you can't perform it more than once.
Yeah, but if you perform it once, it loses its abilities till end of turn.
Oh, this Signet loses its
Yeah, 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 yeah.
abilities.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it loses its protection abilities.
Okay,
But that's a
okay. So
fancy
you
way
could
of
like hold action
correct.
basically.
You can be like, you can kill my
Okay.
level 1. That's
For
fine.
those of you that are familiar with D&D terms, sometimes during combat you can do something called hold an action. And then you can just choose to do it later,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
basically.
Let's say the opponent tries to bait you to get rid of your level 1, but you have a level 3 on your field that also opens a lane, and you need to open that lane to win the game on your following turn. You can be like, you can kill the level 1, and then they go, okay, now I'm going to target the level 3 that opens the lane. You'd be like, nope, keep it around.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I can't. I'm out of gas now, and then you win the game. Based on that.
Sure.
So yeah, it also stops if you have 2 Yukas, stops them from triggering on the same Signy. They both trigger on the same Signy, but instead of being like, you know, oh, okay, I'm going to use one of my Yukas, but I won't use the other one to save this Signy, this other Signy.
Oh yeah, because
You
you could
can
just hold on one
you
and then
now have
activate
another
the
Yuka
other.
ready to go, right?
Okay, yeah.
And that's something you can kind of mess around with Exia, for example, is you can target something that's around Exia to trigger Exia's things so they close off the lane and then you kill the other 2, right? Because it's a once per turn action. This isn't. So you
Yeah.
can play around that a lot.
Got it.
It also draws you a card. It is worth mentioning that this is not a May ability. I have
Draws 2 cards, discard 1 card.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It is worth mentioning this is not a May ability. I have milled myself out because you have to when you play this do the action. Um, It's Bond is actually pretty good. It's just like Tomago, allows you to down 2 of your outrights and draw a card.
It is like the Tamago level 3 Desona.
What's great about bonding with this one, as well as doing its auto ability, is that you're feeding cards into your hand, so you have the fuel to use for Yuka.
Mm-hmm.
So she's probably the standout Signy of the set. But she's only a standout Signy because all the level 1s, right, in each color, I'm just going to highlight a couple of them here as we go along. I'm not going to talk about them too much. Is that these ones are all tanky. These ones all can be 8Ks or higher than that, right? They can all get Shadow level 1, stuff like that too. So in various colors as well, right? So like basically there's always a way to make your field large, right? For
like more bulky.
yeah, for a while. And you'll notice that some of the bonds themselves too say bonds is get an extra 4,000 power, right? Which means that your level 2s, if you bond them against an aggro deck, all right, they're 12Ks, right? And historically, they don't aggro decks don't want to deal with 12Ks, right? So
They want to win the game before those hit the field.
yeah. So there's always ways to like make your Signy pretty tall. I guess
Mm-hmm.
is the word for
Tall.
it. Yeah, tall.
Sure.
So there's pretty tanky. It's pretty tanky. Um, Tanky on itself is not great. It's passive, right? And passive is not a play style you want to play in Wecross. But there are ways to be less passive because of it, which is pretty good. So, for example, one that I want to shout out here is Miri as a level one. Get to it. Miri as a level one is just a very good card. It's it's just like
What color?
white. It's just like you know these level one shadows walls that we've seen plenty of times again. But the fact that it gives itself shadow and something else shadow,
Oh, this was annoying.
yeah,
This was annoying to play against during pre-release. Like if you've ever been up against like a stop sign, this is a stop sign, but way better. Sorry,
yeah.
stop sign. Driver's ed.
Driver's ed. You like stop sign.
That's
Um,
what I called it before I found out the translation.
yeah,
Just
but
driver's ed. This is a almost better driver's ed.
I would argue that it's a better driver's ed because yes,
I mean,
it's
it's specific to Blue Archive, which in my mind gives it a little bit of a negative because it's less flexible.
wholeheartedly agree with you.
But if you're going to be playing all Blue Archive anyways, then
This
this
is just
is
zone.
better than
Right.
Driver's Ed.
Because the cool thing with this is you can put any level one out with it, right? And then you've got defense on you. Unlike Driver's Ed, where you need to play Driver's Ed, or Driver's Ed and Toki, or Driver's Ed and something else, right? Like this allows you to be like Driver's Ed and Monument, right? That is insane. Putting out a Driver's Ed and Monument, or a Driver's Ed and uh, Firecracker, right?
Mhm.
Like kill something else, right? Like that's nuts that you
Yeah.
can that allows you to not play passively. That allows you to play aggressively. And the cool thing about turn one is you have an open hole already. Stick this in the open hole, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a blocked lane, and you can put out the thing that opens up the block lane, the level one that opens up the blocked lane, right? Boom, you've got two holes now, so you're maximizing your offense without any effort, but you're also maximizing your defense without any effort because both of them now have Shadow level one.
Mm.
And to be clear, Shadow level one means that Elrigs can't kill it either. Um, it's a good card, right? Like it is. It's weird to follow up like an SR being like, this is the best card in the set, and then immediately follow it up with a common and be like, this is the second best card in the set. It is though.
Yeah, it's really good.
I mean, in pre-release, I stuck this down against you, and for 3 turns, you really couldn't use your grow assist.
No, I couldn't.
Um,
Yeah, I had to be really like meticulous with how I played around these guys.
yeah. So it's pretty good. But like for example, look at the Koharu with with just that one, right? If you want to build walls, Koharu's insane to build to be a wall, right? Not only can you reveal it, right, and then you can target top card of your deck if it's a blue archive. Yeah, it gets 4,000 power, right?
Mm-hmm. Until the end of your
Yeah, but here's the
next
thing:
turn.
you can target. It doesn't even have to be this one. You can target a different Signy and give it the plus 4,000 power.
Target one blue archive Signy on your field. Yeah, that is what
So
that says.
so you can make this a 7K, which is I think 90% of the time that you're doing it. But there's 10% that you're going to give it to something else to try and protect it harder, right?
Yeah, and you don't even need to target this Signy in particular if you bond with it, and then it just gets shadowed
Right,
2
and
or lower
that's even crazier.
during your opponent's
Is if you bond with it, this gets shadow level 2 or lower, which by the way, Elrigs as well.
It does not specify Signy.
Means
And
that
also will be a majority of
so
people's
yeah,
decks.
that would be a 3K that's basically unkillable, right? With the exception of like level 3s and centers. While simultaneously you put one of your other level 1s up to that's a 3K up to a 7K. So that's going to be hard for them to kill too. Like that is another way to build a wall, and it is very good. So yeah, in the end, I would say Blue Archive is rather bulky. I think that's overall what you're going to see. They also can open lanes, right? Like, I think the black level 1 is the best level 1 to open lanes, um, which
Izumi.
is a jury. Jury,
Yes.
you pay and enter, target Signy on your opponent's field gets negative 3,000, and you can theoretically move it into another lane too if you want. Um, so you could get around Exia shenanigans with that sometimes. Um, Azumi is a level 1 mill 3 or mill
Oh
5,
yeah, that's
depending
right.
on how you bond it. And we'll call that aggressive because that mills your opponent out, right? So milling your opponent out is aggressive, refreshing is damage, not
Mm-hmm.
passive. Um, there is a green level 2 named Shirika?
Serika?
Sirika? Um,
Kuromi?
yeah, that is basically just Lancelot, but in green, right? Like it is pay and enter. This gets Lancer, right? More or less.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but this one's 5,000 or lower. Wolf is 3,000 or lower.
Yep, and it has to be a level 1
Mm-hmm.
for Wallwolf. I'm just saying this is basically Lancelot in green. It's a
Mm-hmm.
good card. Lancer is a good ability. um, and
We like on-demand Lancer.
and then there is a in blue. There's Chirihu. I'm terrible at Japanese names.
Let's see.
Chihiro. Chihiro. There we go.
Chihiro.
Um,
Like from Spirited Away.
at the beginning of your attack phase, you can discard a card and then give something negative 3,000.
Mm-hmm.
It's good.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good card. And then in white, it's a level 2. Kazusa is a down. You down it and you pay an enter, and you can bounce target level 1 to the opponent's hand. It is less powerful.
Yeah, and by now y'all should be kind of seeing the same pattern that we've been seeing, which is that none of these are 10,000 or more. It's not like that. Like
No.
a majority of these are going to be like, let's pump this up by 4 and give something -3.
Yeah. And so
Mainly interacting with level 1s.
yeah, and that's really. I'm not even gonna say your level 3s get you there because they generally speaking don't. There's a few that do, but it's really your centers that get you there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the question some people might be having before we even get into the centers is, if I'm going to play a Blue Archive deck, should I play a Blue Archive center? Or should I play a different center? And that's very similar to when people were talking about Dissona. Should I be playing a Dissona center? Should I be playing Dissona? Should I just be playing a Dissona main deck with an already existing center? And the answer to that question, I think, is interesting in the same that I think it's very similar to Dissona, which is you probably should be playing Blue Archive centers with Blue Archive main deck.
Well, you can bond with them then.
Yes.
You can bond with your Lyrigs.
I would say that all of these centers are borderline broken when you consider the fact that you can bond with them. And the bond thing is optional, just to be clear. I think you bond with your centers 30% of the time. I don't even think you bond with your centers.
I don't think
100% of the
I
time.
didn't bond with Azusa once.
Yeah.
I just didn't feel the need.
Yeah, if you're playing Azusa, and I'll pull this card up too. If you're playing Azusa, right, like its bond ability allows you to constantly refresh your hand and get the best card off the top of your deck, right?
Mm-hmm.
At the cost of enter, which is tough.
That's why I didn't do it.
Yeah, I think you only play that during the discard matchup, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you're not going to play that against the aggro matchup. There's no
Yeah.
reason to. So I would say the fact of the matter is these every single one of these Blue Archive Elrigs is borderline broken when you add the bond to them. And then with the option that you don't even need to bond with them, instead you can just get a bond with your Signy instead. I'd say it's better, right? Like I personally would do it. There's probably some corner cases where you're like, I'd rather just play this center.
Mm-hmm.
I like Remember is the one that always comes up, right? Because that one allows you to shuffle your main deck all the time and helps with your main
like
deck.
maybe instead of doing Azusa, you would play Remember instead.
Right.
It's like roughly the same mechanics. It's just executed a little different.
Right, or maybe something like Sachet, because Sachet is a deck that is a center that wants to hole up a lot, right, and wall up, and it the fact that all of these are pretty tanky also just helps with that mechanic, right? So I think you could. I think there's corner cases for it, but overall, I'd say you probably want to play Blue Archive centers with your Blue Archive main deck.
Yeah.
I'd also say every single Blue Archive. I'm going to look at the camera because I know some people are going to get really mad at me when they say this, and I want them to feel like I want them to feel like I'm talking directly to them. Here, I'm going to make it big, so it's just our faces looking at the camera.
Look at us.
All of the Blue Archive assists are bad. They're all bad. They're not good. Don't play them. Okay, cool. We're done. We did it. Someone's furiously smacking their keyboard right now. I can hear
the keyboard typing.
I'll take an extra step for it. Really, none of them are all that great. There's one that interests me, and that's it. Which is not that one. Where is
You're talking about the assists?
Yeah. The one that makes the paper doll. Level 2 paper doll. That's the only one that I would consider playing. Yeah, this one.
What are you talking about?
It's the white colored Blue Archive level 2. I'm gonna read it though.
Okay.
It's got attack phase. It costs 3. You put a doll from your, like a paper doll token, the paper doll token, yeah, onto the field, right? and you basically, that doll more or less says, at worst, I block 2 damage. At best, I block 3 damage. Blocking 3 damage for 3 enter is good.
So it's a substitute doll?
Basically, yeah. But if it blocks only 2, or God forbid 1 damage, which there is scenarios where it only blocks like a single damage, right? Then paper doll's awful. Terrible card. It is a high floor and low floor, high ceiling. I don't know. I always get that term wrong. Where if you play it correctly in the correct matchup, it's explosive and awesome. And if you don't, and it's not in the right matchup, you just lose.
How are you putting multiple dolls on the field?
You don't. You put one doll, but the doll itself brings itself back to life like once.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's. I don't have the token on this website, so I was just gonna ignore it for a second. That card is fine. The rest of them, trash. Awful. Sorry.
They were pretty frustrating to build decks with for sealed, I will say. Like all of us in our group were like looking at the assist lines that we were given, and we're just like, I guess I'll pick these.
Yeah.
And just do their best.
We all ended up with the same
we were
same
all
deck.
The same assists.
So let's pop in and talk about these pieces real quick, right? Because
we kind of touched on them earlier in the podcast.
Yeah, need a discussion. As we talked about, General Student Council is not great. It's actively bad. Chronos News Club is not all that great either, but it is the only other relay piece that you can play, and it is very fine.
It's draw 2, discard 2.
It fixes.
Then form a bond.
I guarantee you will play it turn 2 every game, and it will be very average. You'll be like, my hand's not good.
Just like cycle 2 cards out of your
Let me cycle 2 cards and name a bond, and now I'm set up for my center on level 3. Like, that's its use case 90% of the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not great, but it's your only other relay piece that you can choose, so it is fine, right?
Yeah, like pick.
And to be honest with you, if you're not bonding with your students, if you're not chaperoning them at the museum trip, then you really shouldn't be playing Blue Archive. The power of Blue Archive is not necessarily the bulkiness. Bulkiness is fine, but that's passive and not great.
Yeah.
What the power of Blue Archive is the flexibility of engineering a situation where your Signy are powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And
like consistently.
In order to do that, you need to know the matchups really well and your own deck really well. It is one of those things where it takes a lot more game smarts than I personally want to do in the game. Mm-hmm. But like for those people who are like, I think a great example is Paraluke. I think Paraluke in the Dishona deck, I think Paraluke was much more powerful than Miko in the GP, right? That happened past. Mm-hmm. But I also think you needed to really be almost omnipotent. Is that the thing?
Where you know all.
Where you know all.
Yeah.
And you're like, I know what my opponent is playing, therefore I'm 3 steps ahead of them. If you're playing like the Death Note game, you got this. If you're like me and Mikasa, you can't think that far ahead. you know?
Yeah.
Um but as
That's a
far
good
as the
way of
pieces
putting it.
go, swimsuit is a fine piece.
It's fine.
The problem is it's only actively fine.
Mm-hmm.
Um Following that, Tea Party is kind of in the same boat.
Let's take a look.
You get a barrier, right? I think it's an Elrig barrier.
Let's see.
Or is it a Signy barrier?
Its use cases is you have one or more white lyrics on your field. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck. Add up to 1 card from among them
Yeah.
to your hand. Put the rest at the bottom of your deck in any order. You get 1 Signy barrier, and then you can exceed 4 to
Bond.
form a bond.
Yeah. So personally, I think
A Signy barrier is nice.
I was not super impressed with Sunspot Memory because it's passive, and this is
really
this is
that's a really popular card.
Yeah, I think people like the passiveness of it. I think a lot of Wecross players enjoy walling up and being like, I'm thinking about the win, and then not getting the win. And I don't think Wecross is a game built for passiveness.
I don't think
So
either.
I'm not a fan of this as much, and I think if you're going to play the passive game, I think Sunspot Memory plays the passive game better
than this.
So I'm not a fan of it. The
Taking
other
5 and only drawing 1 is a little like.
Yeah,
I mean,
it gets you a guard. This one allows you to get a guard for what it's worth.
I mean, it will give you a higher likelihood of getting a guard.
Yeah,
just because you're digging 5 and it doesn't stipulate that you can't pull 1.
Yeah, Sunspot Memory doesn't get you a guard, so there's use case there. Sunspot Memory also gets you an Ellery barrier though. I've also just been less impressed with barriers in general. Like, if I want a barrier, I want it like when I have no life cloth left, because then I want the early snowball turns of like, hit a burst, stop this, and you don't get that with barriers.
That's true. A barrier does technically, while it prevents damage, it also prevents a life burst from triggering.
Yeah, I think I'd prefer to have the life burst than the barrier.
Yeah, the barrier.
I think the best times I've ever seen Sunspot Memory played against me is when the opponent had 0 life left.
That would happen to me, and I'd be like, oh.
Yeah.
Now I have to plan for 2 more damage that I was not planning on.
The other 2, and I think these are probably the better 2 by a wide margin.
Seminar and Gehenna Academy.
Gehenna, yeah. So Seminar allows you to, for 1 enter, it draws you 4 cards and then freezes you the opponent's Elrig. Very simple effect. But Blue Archive is really greedy when it comes to hands that are discarding cards like left and right to do their effects, right? Drawing 4 cards basically just gives you gas to discard 2. It doesn't really, like, you might be thinking, oh, well, I've got 6 cards in hand already. Drawing extra 4, I'm just going to have to discard them, right? No, Blue Archive effects make you discard them. So you're probably down to 3 at the end of your turn if you were at 10 at the start of it, Like, you can really blow through
cards. That's a good way to look at it for sure, is if you're going to be discarding to make your opponent discard or discarding to give negative effects.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is just upping your resources.
I think I'd rather freeze an Elrig than get an Elrig barrier, for example.
It does the same thing, basically.
I don't have to worry about having a guard in hand if the opponent's Elrig is frozen. Like, right, if I'm getting duressed by discard and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
The other one here is Gehenna, and I think Gehenna is probably
disciplinary committee.
I think Gehenna is probably the best by a long margin, right?
It's solid.
It is. If you're gonna play this, this is probably what you're playing it for. 2 enter, grab the best 3 cards from your trash, put them in your hand, mill your opponent 8, and then also bond with the student and give something negative 8,000.
Negative 8.
It's just a lot. You're just doing a lot, right? You're not ever doing.
You can't draw a guard from your trash, but being able to fix your hand to make a whole new field for yourself or get something back that you've lost is pretty powerful.
Yeah, I think, and basically, it's not really doing anything overtly powerful. Milling 8 is significantly worse than milling 10, right? You're not.
Yes.
You're well. I mean, and it's only 2 cards, but it's significant to 2 cards, right? Mill 10 is in a territory where you're up against a long turn deck, like a turn 6 or turn 7 deck, and you'll mill them out naturally. Or you're up against a deck that's hyper drawing cards and they'll discard, then you'll mill them out naturally, right? You don't have to
Mm-hmm.
do any other work. Normally the rule of thumb is mill 15 and you have a refresh.
Yeah, but this will add to your 15.
Right.
Like you only need to mill them an additional
They're eight,
7 to 8
yeah.
more cards.
There is no world where you play. There's worlds where you play mill 10 and the opponent mills out anyways, and you don't need to put the extra effort into milling
because
the
they're
last
drawing.
half. Yeah. In 8, there is no world where that happens. You have to supplement it with another half of the mill in order to get there.
Yeah, and luckily Blue Archive like does give you that with its Signies.
It has Uzumi for sure,
Mm-hmm.
and she I think does a job of milling. But the negative 8,000 also not great. It's only okay. It's as borderline as you can get.
Yeah, it's not gonna break through those level 3 walls.
Right. And so the mill, that, the bonds, right? But the real powerhouse of it is return your best 3 cards to your hand. So if you're up against aggro, cool, you return the Yuka to your hand. Boom, you've now got, not only do you have things to discard to Yuka for, but you also have walls, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you need to push the last bit of damage, that negative 8k killed a level 1 or a level 2, but cool, you bring back a level 3 that actually kills the level 3 in front of you or something. So this is where that puzzle pieces make it better, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's I think a very well balanced card in that respect. It's not overly powerful, but I do think it is powerful.
I mean, all I'm saying is that I ended up opening that for the sealed pre-release and I took first place. So
that is true, you did.
I'm not saying that it's causation. I'm saying it's correlation.
Yeah, I also think you're a good player, so I think there's that too.
All right, yeah.
I think so. I think it's also worth mentioning for these pieces too that like you can run double color in them. Like they only are asking that you have one, right? So
and
unlike
it's a dream team,
right? Unlike dream teams, they're not. It's not asking you to have a rainbow, right? Yeah. It's not asking you to play white, red, black. It is asking you to have a black Elrig on your field. That's it. Which means that you could play white, white, black.
Yep.
So this is one of the few pieces that you can get away with doing that.
Yeah.
There are some scenarios where that matters, right? Where you're playing like Miru and you want to play Madoka because Madoka is a good assist, but that would be blue, so you're locked out of pieces. But oh no, Gehenna you can still play as long as you play that second one as a black.
Mm-hmm.
Those are pieces. We should probably talk about the centers a bit individually now, and then I think a few more card call outs, and then we're done. We'll try to go through them pretty quickly here.
Yeah, we've kind of touched on these before when we were talking about our pre-release experience.
We've got Azusa. Azusa does a lot. I mean, they all do a lot. But innately, Azusa allows you to spend a colorless and a white to trash your opponent's Signy, unless you have less than 3 Life Cloth, in which case you bounce it. Then you also have a once per game that lets you look at the top 7 cards of your deck and put 2 of them to your hand. They can be cards, by the way, which is great. And then its Bond action allows you to spend colorless, and then you can look at the top 3 cards of your deck and add 1 to your hand. Basically, Remember's ability. And Remember's ability is great. But Remember's ability was always one of those ones where it was like, it was good in counter control matchups, but not great in the aggro matchups.
Mm-hmm.
And this one basically gives you the best of both worlds. If I was looking to play a white control deck right now, Azusa would be my number 1
for
starting
Blue Archive.
In general. I would not be playing Remember. I wouldn't be playing Yuki Disona. I'd be looking at specifically Azusa. Azusa does every single thing that I think I want in a control center. That's not to say control's great right now. I'm just trying to say that I think it is probably the best control center that's been printed so far. It screws your opponent's resources by trashing their field, right? And then if it's not trashing, it's bouncing, which is worse, but it is still screwing resources. It allows you to find guards relatively easily, and then in long games against other long-term decks, you can make sure that you're constantly playing the best gas you possibly can be playing against them, right? The 3-3-1 fields, the 3-3-2 fields. All of those things are solid. It's one downside, very error intensive. Very, very enter intensive.
Yeah, which is one of the reasons why I chose to do the
Mm-hmm.
enter charge assist for it.
Yeah, I'd be looking to.
Every single one of these abilities, except for the once per game, you're going to be paying for
Yep.
every single turn.
And I think you want to be playing every turn. So this is every turn you will be spending 2 enter.
Yeah.
Trashing is significantly better than bouncing, which means that you also need to wall up with this deck. But luckily, Blue Archive delivers on that front. You can wall up.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say this is pretty good there.
Okay.
Niru. Niru is. I have actually got a lot of experience playing these because I've been prepping for the GP. Niru is also very strong. It is kind of similar to Azusa in the fact that it's opening a lane every turn and it wants to play that game, but it's probably more aggressive than Azusa, because it ends up playing out in practice like a hyper discard deck, where it's more tempo than it is control. Because you have to play the cards that allow you to discard stuff, the best things that you can discard to in Blue Archive is things that open lanes or things that make your opponent discard a card. We skipped over the entire blue suite of like, there's Monoman, but it's also random, which is great. That card's awesome, but it requires you to discard a card. So that is where this card's at its best. It's really fishing for an easy win. It can do the hard win where it discards your opponent down to 0 cards in hand. And then it's like, now you don't have a card, so I'm punching you in the face, you know? And it does that well. It opens up a lane and also opens itself, or it attacks with itself because it has no cards to defend itself. Therefore, it's theoretically getting in at least 2 damage in every turn, right? Very good. However, because it does have random discard, right? Its once per game is that you can draw 2 cards and make your opponent random discard, which is really important because, again, Blue Archive is hand hungry to do their effects. You need that refill there.
Plus, random always lets you snipe a guard.
Right, but like,
if you can
pair random with like also playing like Madoka Dub, right, which also does a random discard, and then the Monuments, which also does a random discard. There are games where you will make your opponent feel bad because you will be like, turn 1, make you discard a card. They discard their guard. You like, cool, do 2 damage. Then you're like, turn 2, random discard. They discard a guard, and then you're like, cool, and you do 2 damage. And then you do turn 3. How many cards do you have left? 3. Okay, 33% chance. Yeah, let's try it. I'll do 2 random discard. Yep, you hit a guard on the second one,
and then your
and now you win.
No guards for the entire game.
Yeah.
Which, if you've ever drawn a game where you just naturally never run across a guard, not only is it a bad time, but you are fixing to lose.
Yeah. There are definitely non-games with Niru where you just win. And I think that's by design. I think that's how you build this deck.
I mean, definitely also the ability to give something -10 when we've already discussed that is a really hard thing for Blue Archive in particular to overcome.
Yeah. Niru,
it does the thing.
Niru is similar to Miko in the fact that Miko is also a hyper discard tempo deck. But unlike Miko, this can't stop the opponent from having enter, which is a downside, but it gets its upside back by saying also its once per turn bond action is that it can draw 2 cards, discard 1 for the cost of 1 enter, which means that it can fight a longer game that Miko can't do. So it's interesting. I think they're both similar power level. Shiriko is up next. Shiriko allows you to, at the beginning of your attack phase, if 2 or more cards were put into your enter zone this turn, you can target 1 sitting on the field. You can give it pay 2, one of those being a green, and you can give it S Lancer till end of turn. So it's similar to Mel in that respect. To turn it on, you need to have something that enter charges on your field. 1. It just needs to enter charge 1 because you can also enter charge from your hand and it will do the job. Right? So that'll do 2 enter total.
It's once a game also allows you to activate this ability.
On the spot, yeah, should you need it. And also lets you get your best stuff, toolbox, which I think is very good. And then its bond ability is once per turn, you can target 1 signet in your enter zone after your hand. So technically it costs 2 enter, right? Because you got to steal the card from your enter too. It's less good. 2 enter to get a very good card is fine, but it is if average is here, it's like here instead of being here, where the other ones are like here. So this card's great. Getting S Lancer every turn is great. We all know this is, as any green player can attest. S Lancer on demand is amazing,
Yeah.
right? It allows you to play the winning game on a different access than other decks do. So they might be sitting pretty with their Exias and being like, "Oh, I'm screwed," you know.
Yeah, because do you remember that things like Lancer and Super Lancer, they break through things that are like, this has shadow, like not against Lancer it doesn't.
Yep. And that's it's great.
And Super Lancer can win you a game.
I would say Shiriko is probably. I would look at all three of these and say they're all very good. Which brings me to Hina again, and I feel like there's a lot of people who love Hina, and I.
You can love the character. We're just talking about the card mechanics.
The card mechanics of this one's not so great. Negative 3,000 is something that you can get from level 1 Signy basically all over the place. So it's not really helping you too much here. Once per game action allows you to grab something from your... Or once per turn action, when you bond, it allows you to grab something from your trash. But it costs 2 enter. So it's expensive. It's fine, but it's expensive.
Well, what that really says, though, is that you put 2 cards from your enter zone into your trash, and then you could potentially pick one of those 2 cards. So this is allowing you to, for the cost of 1, take something from your enter and put it onto the field.
Yeah. People have different thought processes about how to build a deck, but my thought process is a strong Elrig deck makes a strong main deck. Some people would rather have a strong main deck and like cherry pick through it, toolbox it, which is fine. People can do that, and this is fine for toolboxing. But herself, she's just not that very much of a strong Elrig to begin with.
Yeah, this wouldn't be the Elrig that I would want to toolbox with.
Your main deck better be really good in order to make up for this. And then it's once per game action is that you can get 2 Signy for free from your trash and put it on the field.
With different levels.
Yeah.
So you can't pick 2 level 3s.
And it is worth mentioning, putting 2 Signy from your trash onto the field is significantly worse than your hand for Blue Archive. Because Blue Archive wants to have things to discard. So if you have good stuff in hand and you just need the discard, right, you can't do that. You can't just put fodder into your hand and do that kind of thing. Okay, so how do you build these decks? I think with Azusa, you build it to be a long game deck, right? You try to win on turn 6 or 7. Niru, you're probably not doing that. You're trying to probably win on turn 5, but you should be padding with a lot of discard and a lot of cycling your own hand, which blue can give you. With Shiriko, it's probably just a good stuff green deck.
Good stuff green
Good stuff toolboxy green deck.
The solid green.
Always pretty good. And then Hina is going to be a toolboxy black good stuff deck. It's probably just like Shiriko, but probably worse. And that's how you build those decks. There's a couple more single Signy cards that I want to point out that I think are worth mentioning. Mikasa and Mine are both really probably good for the Azusa deck and probably less good elsewhere. Mine gives you
Mika and Mine?
Yeah. Mika gives you more lane opening that works well with your long game that you're trying to do. And Mine gives you more walling, which is good for your long game that you're trying to do. Hibiki is probably one of those better level 3s that exist in Blue Archive in general. It basically just fancy says your opponent discards 2 cards when this attacks, or during the attack step. Discarding 2 cards is pretty good, but the bond action is sneakily pretty good too. It's a nice way to kill things if you need to at the very late game. If you have if you're running this as like a 4-of, giving negative 10,000 at the cost of your hand is really good. Azuna is probably one of the better Blue Archive level 3s that you can play in general. For basically any deck. It does 2 things that are very, very nice. The first one allows you to take a card from your hand and take a card from your enter and swap it, which means that that crappy level 1 in your hand, but you have a really great level 3 in your enter. Whoop! Right? It doesn't cost you anything. You still get the enter. You're repaying yourself the enter.
Yeah.
It's just allowing you to have unparalleled selection there. That's very, very, very good. The action ability to give itself Assassin is also very strong. We talked about how Blue Archive lacks ways to really deal with big Signy. And
this just gets around
This gets around it, and I think that is really good. It also gets around the best card in the set, which is Yuka. Yuka. The one that allows you to discard two cards
The
to
H2O
yeah,
2.0.
but you don't need to worry about that if you just assassin around it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
The
very
bond action is interesting. It says for 0 cost action, put this card from your enter zone onto your field, which means that if you bond with it, you can just get it whenever you want.
yeah,
If it's in your enter,
and not only that, it then
reuse it.
gets you whatever the worst card or whatever the best card was that died last turn as well, right? So let's say you had a really good card, a level 3, you end this on the field, and a level 1. Level 1, the opponent wipes out your field, right? Cool. You get this back to your hand using the bond action. Whoop. Now it's in your hand, right? You play it. Then you get the level 3 that was on your field prior to that. Whoop. Back to your hand, dishing whatever level 1 that you drew that turn. And then you have the field again. You have the same field that you did last turn, and it's very strong. I think the bond action this is one of those ones where I'd say the bond action is really worth looking out for, right? I think this one and Yuka are really good bond actions to have because they fuel the thing that they're doing themselves already, and I think that is very strong. Plus, I think there's an argument to make, right? That let's say you're playing Hina, right? It costs 2 enter to get a card from your trash and put it to your hand. This costs technically 1 enter to get back from your enter to your hand. So arguably, this is cheaper than Hina's ability. So would I bond with Hina if I'm running this card? No, I bond with this card and then do the same thing I was doing with Hina for cheaper. Also goes to say why I don't think Hina's all that great.
This is the cheaper, better version of Hina.
Wakabo is a crazy card.
Yeah, this card is crazy. When I read this, I was like, "Are you kidding me?"
Wacky card. Allows you to basically crush a life cloth if it crushes. It's weird. It's almost like double crush in green, but better because
it's like a protected double crush.
Because you don't get the life burst till after the Signia.
Yeah, because it crushes 2 life cloth separately instead of crushing 2 life cloth in the same action, which you can very easily counter and then essentially prevent 2 damage.
Yeah.
This one does 1 and then another.
Right. I think it's probably worth mentioning that card's wacky and is very strong in certain situations and not so strong in other situations. I think the last card actually there's 2 cards I want to talk about before we go. Okay. The second to last card is Koyuki. Koyuki's random Monon in blue. Very strong.
This is the level 1 blue.
Just very strong. I don't think anyone here is expecting us to say why Monoman is strong. This is being random Monoman, just even better. Period. Right. The last one is actually this is a card type that I like a lot, and I see people sleeping on and disrespecting constantly. Akane. Okay. Akane is a level 1 whose enter ability is you can discard up to 2 blue archives in your hand, and then you can draw a card for each that you've discarded. Okay? It's got a life burst too, and the life burst is pretty good. People be sleeping on cards like this.
Where you discard 2 and draw up to 2?
Yeah. For example,
discard up to 2, and then basically draw 1 card for each card discarded this way.
For example, people really slept on Matcha during the last GP for
Matcha ended up being super good.
Well, yeah, and it's just why is it good? It gives you a life burst slot that's a little harder to fill out normally, so that's one of the reasons why it's good. But more importantly, it gets you the best cards in your deck, right? For basically a cost of no hand. It's just a free cycle. And Wixoss has more and more become a game of how fast can you rip through your deck to find the things that you need to set your game plan up, and then do your game plan, right? Like that's Pokemon. Pokemon, that's all the game is I have 5 cards in my deck, and these cards are amazing, and every other card allows me to either tutor or cycle to find that card, right? So it is one of the more powerful things you can do. It's a workhorse, right? It's not glamorous. It's not flashy, but it is one of the best things that you can be doing. So I find, just like I found when I was testing Persona, I just slowly putting more and more Emergence and Matcha into my deck. Both of those cards helped me solidify the core of my deck better.
Mm-hmm.
I'm finding the same with Akane. I'm putting it is like there are some decks that I'm running 0 blue in, and I've got 2 Akane in because I'm just like it just helps me filter.
Yep. It's a good filtering for blue and for blue archive.
Yeah. Now there's other cards in Blue Archive that are good, right? That we're not going over. Like for example,
this podcast would be forever long.
Yeah, for example, Guard is a fantastic card. But there's other cards in here that are all very good, help support the core of the deck. But we really wanted to focus more on the build, like what you should be doing to build the core of your deck, and then let you guys piece together the things that you want to piece together, rather than go over every single individual card because of time as well.
Yeah,
we're already over what I want to be, but it is what it is.
I hope you guys like the longer podcast after only being a day for just a few days.
Just a few days. Just being away for a few days.
Yeah.
Yeah,
this should be an interesting set. To see how it all kind of shakes out in the standard tournaments. I know that there were a lot of people that were very excited for Blue Archive for various reasons. A lot of people were very excited for the new like mechanics, the introduction of new cards, and all of that stuff. And some people are just fans of Blue Archive, so seeing one of your favorite properties represented in one of your favorite games, like
it's cool.
Yeah, that's definitely a cool thing to look out for. And we'll see how it all goes.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited to play Nero a bunch. Nero just plays like a style of gameplay that I really enjoy playing, which is just like RNG. Do I win? Kind of thing. I like it a lot.
Should be fun.
I expect that.
And also returning to blue for you because you do enjoy some of the blue
I know. I mostly I like black the most out of all the colors.
You play blue a lot.
But I play blue a lot, which is true.
That's like how I like green, but I play white a lot. Yeah. You know how it is.
But yeah, speaking of green, Shirko looks up your alley.
Yeah, I'd be interested. I would be interested in exploring a deck built around Shiroko and Blue Archive for funsies.
Yeah, I think
for funsies. Because sometimes you have to open up mentorship programs and supervise bake sales and all that stuff.
Yeah, I get it. Help run the drama program.
Yeah.
Kids need more arts,
Yeah, more arts programs.
Yeah, music
for sure. Support your local library.
Yeah,
all that good stuff. All right, y'all. With that is our podcast for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this dive into Blue Archive. Please let us know in the comment section down below if there's a card on here that you think that we missed. Please tell us who your favorite Lyrig is for this set. If you have one, we'd love to read all of your comments and see what you guys have to say. And with that said, please make sure that you subscribe, and may you always mentor your students.